Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 109 of the Still City Insider podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jeremy Ritz, welcoming a great guest to the show from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette on the beat for the Steelers, Brian Batko. Brian, thank you for joining the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great, guys. It's great to talk to you. We're in a little bit of a lull right now between rookie minicamp and OTAs starting next week. So this is where we gotta, shake out the trees and come up with some topics and some ideas to kick around on all these Steelers shows.
Well,
Brian, I have found you to be the master of the lull. That's why you're on this week. You actually you pay more attention than I do. You're a very observant beat writer, and so since I went to lunch most of rookie minicamp walkthrough, hopefully you saw something that I didn't.
You're out to lunch, literally, not just the saying out to lunch. Well, thank you, Wex. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So Brian, let's jump into it. The Steelers just concluded their rookie minicamp on the 12th of May. We're getting ready for OTAs to start on the 21st. And I know it's football in shorts, but how did the rookies look?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I took away, because there's not a lot to glean evaluation-wise from what they're doing on the field. I mean, they're working with a bunch of guys who, let's be honest, they're going to be working at Amazon next week. So a lot of those players were tryout, rookie camp invites, getting that one last shot at chasing the dream. It's going to get ramped up a lot next week when OTAs start, and then obviously even ratchet up even more once training camp begins in late July. So for now, though, just being around a lot of these guys, particularly the draft picks who have the most focus on them, you really can tell how sort of polished they are. I mean, that's not always the case with these high pedigree draft guys. Sometimes they're high draft picks because they came out early and they're more potential than production and they're more measurables than experience. But, just from talking to Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier and Roman Wilson and Mason McCormick. I was not in on with Peyton Wilson, but from watching it, very much the same vibe. All these guys have been there, done that in college ball. They've played a lot of snaps. They've played in huge games. Two of them won national championships last year. One of them was playing in the national championship last year. So, I mean, this is a group that, yeah, I think designed as a draft class to win now. And I'm not saying that was necessarily a hard and fast plan for the Steelers going into it, but that's certainly how it shook out in the end. And when you need a bunch of contributions from young guys, it helps to have those who have done it at the highest level, been part of winning cultures, and in most of their cases, 23, 24 years old, should be a little bit more maturity and football character to go along with it.
Yeah, and you talked about how it's difficult to glean anything from rookie minicamp, but you mentioned that you could see who looks polished. So who did look polished from this group?
Well, I think just the biggest sort of news piece that we had on our minds going into it would be, where's the first rounder going to line up? Because again, while this is far from, working with the first team or, buckling your chin strap out at, St. Vincent College in Latrobe and getting ready to hit some guys, it does at least give you a little bit of an indication of what the coaches have planned for them. So to me, the fact that Troy Fautanu was out there right away at right tackle versus, let's just kind of coddle him a little bit. We'll keep him at left tackle where he played at Washington, and eventually we'll start cross-training him and figure it out. Like I can almost hear O-line coach Pat Meyer saying that. But the fact that they just said, hey, get right in there right now, start learning the spot that we probably drafted you for, probably envision you playing this year. It makes me think it's a lot more likely than not that he is going to start week one and that Broderick Jones is going to start week one at left tackle, and Dan Moore Jr. is going to be a little bit of a man without a country. But obviously there's a lot more to be figured out there. Maybe Moore will finally have his chance to sort of compete at the other tackle spot. But that's tough to do with two first rounders coming in there. So even though he's played a million snaps at the NFL level, Fautanu should be somebody who's ready to go right away, and they'll act accordingly.
Should be. I don't know that this is indicative of all of that, Brian. I don't know that. For one thing, Broderick Jones is a pretty good right tackle. He's a better run blocker. He's bigger at the point of attack, and that's what you want on your right-hand side if you're a right-handed team like they are. Second, Dan Moore can't be a swing tackle. So, I mean, if you're going to do this right away, which I'm not sure they are, I do think it was an information-seeking maneuver. I mean, they'd like to know what they got. Can Fautano play right tackle first? Second of all, what if he is the swing tackle? What if Dan is staying at left tackle and Broderick's the right tackle? They're going to need a swing tackle. Fautano has to be able to play right tackle. I mean, if he's a disaster at right tackle the way Dan Moore is, then you can't make that move. And some tackles can't play the other side. Flozell Adams, if you remember, really struggled at right tackle. He played a lot longer in the NFL at left tackle than Fautano has. But so, I mean, it is a good sign for the people who want Broderick Jones to move to left tackle and Fautano to start right away. And maybe they think that they wouldn't need a swing tackle. Maybe Dylan Cook can play backup right tackle and Dan Moore's your backup left tackle. I don't know. What do you think, Brian, I don't believe they're going to look to trade Dan Moore, and that seems to be a popular conjecture right now.
Yeah, two of the I guess devil's advocate things I'll throw back at you there, Wex, is number one, I think I'm putting a lot of emphasis, I guess, and maybe too much on Omar Khan. I think it was at the Combine when he said the plan is to move Broderick Jones back to left tackle with the caveat eventually. So maybe
that makes me wonder if Tomlin has promised Broderick something. If this is a big deal to Broderick, when he kind of maybe didn't like moving to right tackle, and they told him, "Hey, look, if they promised him, I mean, he's a hardworking guy, and they're going to want to appease. They're going to want to live up to their promise there."
Yeah, and you were in on a lot of those scrums with Broderick last year, both in training camp and then in the locker room in the regular season. Once he started playing and starting for Chuks Okorafor on the right side, I feel like he was always sort of like, yeah, I'll do whatever the team wants me to do, but I am more comfortable at left tackle, and then that's fair. I mean, the other thing that I'll say is, the last point on that, I think if they had a mind sort of what you were saying, that, hey, he's the bigger, hulking, stronger, run blocking guy, we got to keep him over there because it looks so good and it's going to work so well. I think maybe Omar takes a little bit different tact with that question and that answer. I think maybe he says something like, we don't know. Broderick's versatile. We like the work that he put in. We like what he can do on the right side. So again, maybe I'm just reading too much into a guy who doesn't want to say much of anything to us, but that's kind of how I took it.
Well, Omar usually doesn't say anything about the lineup because the GM has no say at all in the lineup. He's not telling anybody what to put on the field. He must have known that that's what Tomlin's thinking for him to have said that, unless it was just a slip of the tongue.
Yeah, so that's kind of where my head's at on that. And the other part too, and this is one that we won't really have a feel for until they get back out there, but I'm willing to give Dan Moore a chance to show that year 4 now, it's time, man. You got to be able to do some more work on that right side. Guys don't stick around long in this league as 4th round picks without being able to do both and without being able to be versatile. I know he said in the past, it's like wiping your butt with your other hand when you move from the left to the right side, and it's not as easy as some guys say. But I think, what would Tomlin probably tell him? Don't seek comfort, Dan. We need you to play both sides.
Get some toilet paper and do the job.
Yeah, we need you. We need you to be able to play both sides. So if he would have been a more dominant force as a left tackle over these first 3 years, by all means, buddy, stay there. Don't worry about being a swing guy or a jack of all trades. But if that were the case, they wouldn't be drafting over you in the first round 2 years in a row, with one of those being a trade up to do so. So I'm gonna go ahead and not roll out the kind of the way you did, that Dan can't play right tackle. Maybe he will have a chance to play right tackle.
Oh, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear that quote again.
Yeah, I guess. Well, maybe he'll have a different mindset for us. Maybe his mentality will be different if we ask him about that. This time a week from now.
Well, normally without a new offensive coordinator who probably going to bring in a whole new offense, I don't know what that's going to mean for the offensive line. But since it is a whole new offense, Dan coming back as a starter doesn't help him as much as it normally would with Tomlin. So,
Yeah.
no, I mean, all of these points, I don't know that we should point to one exact thing, but it's a lot of knowledge that we can draw from. It informs us. And I think that move to right tackle was interesting. I was a little surprised, caught me by surprise. But I think that was about the only really information that we got from that rookie minicamp.
Yeah, if you want to, even domino effect a little bit more on the O-line, Mason McCormick did say he was working at the right guard spot, and much like Troy, he was a left guard through and through in college, and as we know, I think the Steelers probably feel a little bit better about Isaac Seumalo at left guard than they might about James Daniels going into the last year of his deal at right guard. So that's just another one. Maybe it's kind of like what you were saying in these early stages, see what McCormick can do on the other side. In McCormick, I mean, for what it's worth, that's no problem. I did it all in practice in college. Like, they did a great job flipping us back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. But that does make me think that, hey, if anybody can't sleep as well at night after those 3 rounds, it's more so James Daniels than Isaac Seumalo at the guard spots, as we expected to begin with.
See what I meant about him being very observant, Jeremy?
Yeah, and the master of the lull. I mean, that's pretty high praise as well.
What's that?
The master of the lull, too, I think you also called me. So that means I just got a lot of hot air to bloviate while there's nothing actually going on.
No, but that was good. I had that thought had passed through my mind and I forgot to use it. Was that, I wonder if this looks like they're going to let James Daniels leave in free agency. It looks like an intention along those lines. But again, it just could be gleaning information.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, both those guys learned in new spots, and again, they've played so much that maybe the Steelers feel comfortable with the tape they've seen of them at left tackle and left guard, respectively. See if they can play right tackle and right guard in the NFL, because they might be needed there sooner than later.
Yeah. So, Brian, with Fautanu at right tackle, kicking Broderick Jones over to left tackle, and the addition of Zach Frazier at center, how does that change the personality of this offensive line?
Well, I don't know how much it changes the personality. I mean, I think it always sounds good that everybody's like, oh, we got these young guys in here. I know Wex's favorite term. They've got all these new ass kickers on the line. But I think that the flip side of that too, though, and I've had a couple readers bring this up to me, and Post-Gazette readers who will send me emails, say, hey, if you want to kick this around in your mailbag or whatever, that's a lot of new on an offense that, it all sounds good in April and May and even June and July and August, but new play caller, new quarterback, parenthesis S, new wide receivers other than George Pickens and Calvin Austin, and, 2 new starting offensive linemen, it looks like, I think. I mean, probably going to be some growing pains off the bat. And, man, how many times have we said that in the post-Ben era for the Steelers? So I guess I'm not trying to be a wet blanket here or anything, but as much as you like the mentality and that if any mistakes are going to be made, they're probably going to be made out of aggressiveness, and it's a rather say whoa than sick 'em type deal with these young guys. They are learning life at the pro level and facing a jump in competition, while at the same time other guys on this offense are trying to learn Arthur Smith's scheme and system. So I guess that's kind of one thing to keep in the back of your mind as the schedule is going to be released here very soon, and whoever they got week 1, week 2, week 3, hopefully you're playing some softer defenses than not, because it might not be a seamless transition with all this shuffling.
Yeah, and that schedule releases Wednesday at 8 p.m. on the NFL Network, right? We got to make sure we're in front of the TV for that one.
Sure enough, we'll probably have like the whole Steelers schedule by Wednesday afternoon or something, depending on who gets the right league.
Yep.
We may have to do an emergency cast.
Sure. People will be.
No, I'm kidding.
We'll hit our 1,000 subscribers.
We're not going to double dip during the lull. We can only have Brian on once a week, I think.
All right.
Well, I think there was one rumor out there that they might play the Falcons week 1, and based on the logic I just tossed out there, I feel like it would be a decent team to start your schedule with. They've got a new head coach, and Raheem Morris be installing a new defense for them. So if that does come to pass, maybe that could be a little bit of a break for the Steelers schedule wise.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that won't take on the same magnitude of, what was it? The Raiders going against their old coach in the Super Bowl.
What, Arthur Smith versus the Falcons not going to move the needle for the national NFL
Yeah, I
audience?
mean, I'll be more interested in who the right tackle is than what the offensive coordinator is
Yeah.
planning
You
for
ask,
his own
I think
team.
if you ask fans of 30 NFL teams who was the Falcons head coach last year, they'd probably be like, I
Who's
don't
the
know, but he's
Falcons
not
head
there
coach
anymore.
this year?
Oh man.
Who's the Falcons head coach this year?
Raheem Morris came
Yeah.
over. He was
Okay,
the
right.
Rams
Right.
DC. Yeah,
Right.
been around a lot. Of Tomlin, definitely a Tomlin friend too. So then
Yeah.
there'd be a little layer to that matchup. It's going to happen at some point. We just don't know when.
Yeah. Yep. So with the draft behind us, the Steelers continuing to add some lesser talented players. Maybe I shouldn't say lesser talented players, but Anthony Averett, cornerback, former Raven, and then Scotty Miller, another Falcon that Miller's bringing over from his old team. Do you think the Steelers are done adding via free agency, or do you still think there are some holes on this team that they need to address before the start of camp?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're done. They've still got a few open roster spots after waiving Kellen Diesch yesterday. I thought we might spend a half hour talking about the Kellen Diesch era on the practice squad.
Have at it, brother.
But either way, you never want to get fired on your day off. He got fired on his day off, unfortunately for him. Hopefully he lands on his feet. But the point is, they've got a few roster spots open here. And so, of course, Jeremy, the question, the types of players who are added, are they going to be guys you've heard of or guys that are more in the Scotty Miller, Anthony Averett range of NFL journeymen? So I know everybody wants Omar Khan to be the con artist and fleece the Broncos or fleece the Niners or fleece the Seahawks. I think you only get so many fleecings in this league before teams start to catch on to you. But you never. I mean, there could be another shoe to drop at wide receiver, or I actually think a bigger probably question mark, such as it is on the roster right now, would be the nickel corner spot. Because as I look at it at this point on paper, Beanie Bishop Jr. from West Virginia, I think he's probably the most intriguing undrafted free agent that they signed. He's a 6th-year guy, a lot of ball production as an outside corner last year, but he's 5'9", 180, and they made like 260 some picks and nobody took him. So it's not as if he's a slam dunk to step in here and be able to be an impact player right away in the NFL. Dante Jackson, whom they traded for in the Deontay Johnson deal, he's probably penciled in as an outside starter. If a Darius Rush or Corey Trice makes a charge, could he play inside? I don't know. Could Anthony Averett play inside? He hasn't done much of that to this point in his NFL career, but if you want to extend your playing days, maybe you got to wear some different hats. So, they have some options there, but none of them are like a clear, hey, he's done it, like Arthur Millette had, like Cam Sutton had, even like Chandon Sullivan had, for being one of the more forgotten guys from last year's team. So I wonder if, a Sullivan could loop back in here. We know Patrick Peterson said on his podcast with Bryant McFadden, he's willing to do whatever, as long as he's not sitting on the bench. So maybe slot corner could still be something that he looks into. And Cam Sutton is a thorny issue, a controversial one, but he is out there and there is a lot of familiarity from both sides. So it wouldn't shock me if they added to that position here, but they don't necessarily have to do it before OTAs. They didn't sign Quan Alexander till a few days into camp last year.
Yeah.
So you got Beanie Bishop, Anthony Averett. Hasn't Dante Jackson played? I thought that might have been the plan because it's easier with 3 receivers, especially if PZ Jr. is taking the top receiver. The other guy just, he what do they call that bracket? I mean, he can help with the safety bracket,
right?
Just playing zone press. I mean, Corey Trice or one of those guys might be able to handle that. That might be easier than finding a nickel corner. Of course, it depends on what Dante Jackson could do. I assume since they traded for him that he could do both positions.
Yeah, I don't know his slot corner snap percentage or anything off the top of my head. I know he's a smaller guy and he's mostly played on the outside. So I think the question you'd always have to ask in the Steelers scheme is he willing to stick his nose in there? Is he going to wrap up I almost said Joe Mixon. He's not in the division anymore. Is he going to wrap up a Derrick Henry or Nick Chubb or somebody like that, if they get around the edge? Because we know Mike Hilton was always willing to do that. Arthur Millette, for his faults, was always willing to get his hands dirty. So I think that's the question. And that's always the needle that you're trying to thread at that position is there are guys out there who can probably cover pretty well for an inside corner. And there's guys out there who can be sort of an extra linebacker for you at that position, but they're going to get the ball thrown over their head when somebody runs a wheel route out of the slot. So, I mean, those guys aren't easy to find, but I don't think the Steelers have really prioritized drafting them highly or paying them highly because I think they do get a lot of their production out of, system-based things. So, but it's still an important position. I view it as a starter in today's NFL because you play nickel package more than anything else. So yeah, I mean, hey, if Tomlin really has this idea of the avatar corners on the outside, you'd love for a Darius Rush or Corey Trice to step up and be that guy opposite Joey Porter Jr. And then it's kind of like, all right, well, Dante Jackson, if you want to make yourself valuable to this team, learn a different position the way we asked Patrick Peterson to do last year as a veteran DB.
Yeah, but Patrick was asked to play safety, and I think he was a fish out of water there.
Yeah, he played some on the inside though, which he hadn't really done much to that point in his career. And so, give him, tip your cap to him for being willing to do that. I think the other two names that are like way down the line, but just, put him in the you never know department, or Josiah Scott, who has played nickel with the Eagles, who signed a futures deal, and Thomas Graham Jr., same deal with him. I think he spent time with the Bears and the Browns, but they'll just be the guys trying to scratch and claw in training camp to stick somehow.
What did Josiah Scott look like at rookie minicamp?
He was not there. He's played too much in the NFL to this point. He was actually on the practice squad at times last year, but I think he might have got nicked up. I don't know. I mean, he's somebody who at least it's got a little bit on his resume. He'd be like an Elijah Riley type if he can make some plays in Latrobe and try to get on the team.
How many sixth-year players can you have at rookie minicamp? Because that's what Averett was.
Yeah, I'm not sure about if there's a limit like that on that, like there is on your practice squad, like there used to, like there is on your practice squad. But I feel like you are seeing more and more teams invite those veteran guys. Who was it last year? They had that former Ravens tight end Nick Boyle was long snapping for them at rookie camp, and they also had the running back Jonathan Ward, who's bounced around a number of teams. He was here this year. So I guess more and more teams are doing that to see if guys have anything left in the tank. But it must be odd for Anthony Averett. I don't even know if he did this, but it must be odd for a guy like Anthony Averett to go like ride the bus to Acrisure Stadium with all these rookies and go to the Steelers Hall of Honor and talk about what it was like walking across the stage at graduation last month. So that is strange to see those veterans thrown in there, but I'm sure he's happy. He got signed to an off-season roster out of it.
Yep. He definitely has an opportunity to stick with the Steelers here. And we're coming up on 30 minutes. So the last thing that I wanted to close with, unless Jim has something else there, but talking about the running back position, the Steelers didn't pick up the 50-year option on Najee. So talk about does he feel slighted because of this? Are they going to work out a deal? What's your take on that?
Not seeing anything that makes me think he feels slighted. I mean, normally when these things happen, turn your eye to social media and see if there are any cryptic tweets coming out from the player or any fine print on the Instagram story that makes you think he's feeling some type of way. But no, I mean, I think I saw some photos maybe from Russell Wilson that Najee was at the facility after that, working out with Pat Freiermuth, his draft classmate, and flexing. So maybe he's in a good place about this mentally. Maybe there's good communication about it all along with the Steelers. Maybe they did tell him an extension is still something that could be in the offing, or maybe Najee's just at peace sort of with his Steelers tenure and wants to put in one more good year with the team that drafted him and made him a first-round pick and made him the face of the offense at times, and then he'll go on his way and seek greener pastures. So, I feel like those are rare situations these days in the NFL, right, guys? I mean, somebody's always either feeling like he got one over on the team or feeling like, he was slighted and he deserves more money or he deserves more years or whatever. maybe this is one of those, unusual situations where everybody's kind of happy, even though a decision had to be made and there was a certain power dynamic at work for that decision to come.
I don't know that I've ever seen anybody unhappy about not having their option year extended. I can't recall anybody. I just get the feeling that he's a Terrell Edmonds, a mediocre player, gives you availability. He's always there. He's rugged and easily replaced. That's just my opinion. I remember when he was drafted and the O-line was in shambles. I mean, didn't 4 offensive linemen, just starting linemen, they lose 4 of them? Wasn't that the year?
Yeah, I mean, that was the year they were starting all the rookies along with him, and they were just overwhelmed oftentimes, as you know, and who could have seen that coming?
But the argument then is, I mean, again, besides the first round running back argument, the argument was, why draft your running back when your line is in total shambles? Don't you want to rebuild the line first, then bring in some young kid that can just motor around that line? And so, hey, maybe that's what they're going to do. It looks like they finally got the pieces together for their line. Maybe next year it's ready to just dominate. And then they have Jalen Warren and some hotshot kid that's not beat up and not depressed by the local media.
Yeah, well, maybe
problems.
Maybe Najee will have a career year with this new offensive line, and
then he can go back to Oakland or wherever he's from, and great, go. So
there's no team there anymore, right?
Huh?
Well, there's no team in Oakland anymore, but yeah, San Francisco or Vegas Raiders. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's something that when Najee was drafted, I remember Kevin Colbert talking about how he's got this ability to find hidden yards and he can, sort of be his own blocker. Well, I think nobody can be their own blocker that much behind that 21 offensive line that they had. So yeah, to this point, we'll see how he seems when he shows up. Like you said, Jim, about, has anybody ever, sad about teams or PO'd about teams declining their option? I think there's a perception from the outside that, hey, we don't even want that extra year from you. We're not going to give you that guaranteed money because you haven't been good enough. I don't think Devin Bush was all too happy about it a couple years ago. He handled it well, as with everything.
I mean, Artie Burns is probably a little more confident about having a career year than Devin was.
But yeah. At that point, the writing was for Devin Bush, Artie Burns, guys like that. The writing was so much on the wall that they weren't going to get their option exercised. That I just thought it was very interesting that people seem to be kind of 50-50 split, or maybe even 40-60 the wrong way on predicting how it was going to go for Najee. So I was just curious, like, hey, did this catch him off guard? I think it seems like, from reading the tea leaves of the internet, that no, he doesn't feel like the rug was pulled out from under him or anything like that. Maybe that's a testament to him and the team and the coaches in the front office being on the same page about this for a while.
Well, Brian, we appreciate you being the breaker of the law. The lull, not the law.
Do what I can.
Yeah, we hope to get you back on here again sometime. But where can people check out your work? Social media tags that people can check out your Twitter, those things.
Yeah, I mean, my Twitter is just my name, Brian Batko, if you're still on, roaming the halls of that horrible place. But otherwise, post-gazette.com is where we have all our work. And then we've also got our YouTube channel, PG Sports Now, or Post-Gazette Sports, whatever. It's not hard to find if you search it. Always talking Steelers on there. When you're done with the Steel City Insider show, of course.
Obviously. We'll make sure we link that in the show notes. And then, Jim, I didn't even introduce you in today's episode, so I got to make sure I give you time here. Anything you want to plug or give a shout out?
No, I just want to congratulate you on pronouncing Fautano perfectly.
Thank
perfectly.
You. I practice.
Very. You've been doing your homework. That's nice. Like to see people get better.
That makes.
Hey, Brian, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I knew you'd be able to fill the lull. I mean, you gave us a lot of stuff that I hadn't considered for a couple days. I appreciate it.
Good. Yeah. Food for thought. Thanks for having me on, guys. Anytime.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for checking us out. And we will see you not next week. We're off next week. We'll be back for the week after for another episode of the Steel City Insider Podcast. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.
See you next week, Brian.